fits in the big scheme of things. Now the trouble with that is if you do the same thing here on the next set of strings, take a listen. What happened?
It's all off.
It's all off.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
I mean, it's just different strings.
This one string messes everything up, because if you go another string up, take a listen. Back to normal.
Yeah.
If I go another string up, say it's just that B string because of the tuning. Look, everything the same, and then different, and then back to same. So you're gonna. This is the annoying thing, because if you want to do these runs in the higher register, and volume is the secret here. You're going to be fulfilling a role called padding. Padding. This is what keyboard players generally do in most bands other than reggae. They pad. And to me, the word pad is just a word, but what it represents is kind of like a mist, or like a fog, or like an air that melody sits on top of. So you kind of hear it, but you don't hear it distinctly. You're padding.
Mm-hmm. So
what you're going to want to do, especially in these higher note areas, is pad, which means just kind of be there. Because if you're going, unless you're the featured instrument at that moment, you're not going to get the call back.
Okay.
Okay, so you can add those colors, and what you really should be listening for is spaces in between the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So like something, because a human voice has a breath, so it's going to run out of steam, and then once that steam runs out, then you can kind of come in with the. Oops. Now the cool thing about this too, Dom, is that this is just the edge of a D chord.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is what's actually. Oh yeah. This would be diminished, but just worry about two strings for now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you already got that concept. Pretty simple, right? And it's annoying because on these two strings, you have to adjust. So now it's this. What would it be? Okay, straight line. So you're still going to follow this. So this is actually a minor though. When down here it's major. Minor. Major, straight line. Minor. Minor. Major. Major. Minor. Minor. Major. So if at any point in time you know what interval you're on, if it's 1, 4, or 5, regardless of where you are on guitar, so if this is a 1, I can do that. If it's a 2, then I have to go like that. If it's a 3, 4, 5. But this is already something you've already explored, right? So then the next concept is fourths. So you've been doing thirds.
Yeah.
Now the cool thing about fourths, it's the reason why it's called a perfect fourth is that it pretty much works almost all the time. The only time it doesn't is over the diminished sound,
mm-hmm.
and that's where it changes. But take a look. Yeah, that's the only exception, and that happens because this note is the 7th note, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, I might have messed that up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I take that back. 1, 2, 3. There it is. The 4. The 4 is different. That's it. But everything else is, yeah. And so that's in key, which it sounds weird, so it's a dissonant kind of interval, but when used correctly, it sounds great.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much safe being vertical, except, what about this string? So here's your 4 now. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So you just got to remind yourself that these two strings are it's jacked. I hate that, but that's what allows us to play chords. So our number one function on a guitar is actually to play chords.
Yeah.
It was never built to play lead guitar. It was never meant to be a melody instrument. But you can still do it.
Yeah.
It's just not designed for that. And so as a result, there's a lot of these inconveniences. But if you jump to the next string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So those are 4s. The cool thing about guitar is it's pretty much always vertical. And anytime you're crossing this one string, just push everything up 1 fret. So normally it's a straight line.
Yeah.
Well, over here it's pushed over. Okay. Got it? Easy enough?
Yeah.
5ths. Well, that's also a perfect interval. And this is what I meant by that. The 7th is different. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, this is the
Yeah, because 7 gets a flat. This chord is diminished, and the diminished chord gets a flat 5.
Okay.
Everything else gets perfect fifths. But ask yourself, does that sound good? Like, does that, if you're like playing like, not really.
Not the best.
Not the best. And I would say even the perfect fourth doesn't sound that good. So
That leads up to the.
So that leads to the thirds. That's where you started, and that's probably why you played thirds, because thirds.
Yeah.
That's way more interesting
Mhm.
than perfect fourths or perfect fifths. Okay, but here comes the next one, sixes. This one's interesting. Now you're starting to sound like Hawaiian music.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, those are sixes. But you're not really going to be playing them like this. It's kind of a stretch, right? It's
Yeah.
not like in your pocket. So there's actually a different way of playing them, and it crosses a couple different strings.
Yeah.
So sixes are really good to know.
Okay.
And they're almost like thirds, where they do the same kind of transition. Like all the majors get a certain size and all the minors get a certain size as well. But this is the better way of playing it. So if we start with this string, you'll see the shape a lot better. So if you played a major scale like this, can you do that? Perfect. Now I want you to focus on the starting note and then the sixth note. There you go. That's a 6. So 1 gets a major 6. 2 gets a major 6, which is weird because 2 is minor. So that's an interesting thing. 3 gets a minor 6.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you hear that? That was out of key, right?
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is so that's the only thing. Like right out of the gate, 2 is weird. Everything else is gonna be true to what it is. So major, the exception of a major, that's 2, minor, major 4, right? Major 5, minor 6, minor 7, and then back to 1. That is way better, especially if you're in a contemporary Hawaiian group, because then look. Now the shape is different because I'm on those 2 strings that I have to change everything around. But if you follow that sound and ride it, that's going to be really useful.
Okay.
as far as 2-string ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how it works for the most part, even on this string. But then when you get to the next set of strings, it's all jacked up because now you're touching the B string. So if we were to make this, so this is the starting shape from before.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't sound good. Everything gets pushed up. So now that's your major sound. So major, and then 2 is also major, 3 is minor. Yep. There you go.
These are 6s, right?
These are all 6s, and they're pivoting between major 6s and minor 6s because that's how harmony works. It's constantly switching between those two things by a set of rules, right? And our ears like those rules.
Yeah.
That's what makes good music. So how does this work when you're actually playing? Sounds terrible with overdrive. Keep that in mind. And that's why I said two note solos on overdrive doesn't sound that good. It's
Okay.
too messy. Clean sounds great. But if I hit the overdrive, it's just gonna sound really bad. And that's why when you play power chords, do you play that clean or with overdrive?
Power chords, yeah.
So the overdrive.
Yeah.
And you ever try playing a chord with overdrive? Sounds terrible. And the reason why is that overdrive, it picks up all the harmonics, and so you basically have a chord there, even though technically you don't, because you need to have that sound in there. Or I mean, that sound. Yeah. Which again, clean. Listen to that. It sounds great. But overdrive, this would sound terrible. So the only time that you really get 2-note things with overdrive are perfect intervals.
Okay.
Fifths. So like, that's a fifth. That's a fifth as well. And perfect fourth. But take it with a grain of salt. Like, you can put a little bit of overdrive and still get away with it without it sounding just like a wash of sound. But that's kind of the nature of anything overdriven, and that's why you don't see, metal guitarists going.
Yeah,
but you do hear that in
country,
because it's all clean and it's super clean.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's because you can get away with that. So you kind of want to. I don't really use those unless I'm doing clean solos, and it depends on the song when I choose to do that. But the technique, regardless of which, 6s and 3rds are interesting because they evolve, they change constantly. So it's like a play on your harmony. So 3rds would be, if I did the same thing with 3rds, would sound like a. But again, it sounds really good. If overdrive, not so hot, not so hot. So just keep that in mind. Even though that seems like a logical approach, the sound, if you hit the overdrive and you try to do that,
it's gonna be muddy.
It's not gonna sound so good, and especially if you put delay on it, it's gonna.
It's gonna wash.
Yeah. So it's logically a smart idea because if I don't feel like I'm getting enough pizzazz, why don't I add more? And oftentimes more is more, but in this case, it's not. But if you play with clean, then it's gonna be amazing because if you only rely on single note stuff when you play clean, yes, that gets boring.
Yeah.
But regardless of which, as a guitar guide, this is the two main multiple string things that you kind of want to think about are 3rds and 6s. You could do 7s. 7s are kind of weird though. They sound like this. Let me. So it looks like an octave, but again, because we're on that string, it's actually not. So that's a 7. So again, I'm still, my pointer finger or whatever my lower finger is always going to adhere to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, right? Yeah. So that gets a little more strange.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely still use it. And here's another kind of thought. You can go, I'm sorry. You can kind of combine the 6 and the 7.
Yeah, I definitely like that the most. The way it sounds.
Yeah. But again, clean sounds great. Overdrive just did not sound good at all.
Yeah.
So I like, there's this guy, Eric Johnson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's an old guitar player. But he does all these weird
80s?
things. Yeah. He does, let me see if I can, he does stuff like this.
Yeah. Is that Cliff? He has
Cliff's
that
a Dover,
one?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, his clean sound is amazing.
Yeah, if I did that on overdrive, oh, it would sound horrendous. So that's why when you see overdrive, it's always single riff, single note stuff, or power chords.
Okay.
It's very rare that you get that.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, a band like AC/DC. Oh, I'm sorry. What does that have to go?
Yeah.
No. Whatever.
Yeah.
They're playing chords.
Yeah.
But if you listen to that guitar, is it really overdriven? It's not. Maybe the solo is a little bit, but the chord in the background, it's got a little bit of drive on it. It's got crunch, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
And it's not really that important. It's just more of like it's almost like a cymbal that is a chord. That's kind of more what it is. And it happens to be providing some chord information. But it's very shrill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got crunch on it, and yeah, so
Yeah, even the one, the da 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 da, that's probably a one.
that's all single note stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of those things that necessity breeds innovation and vice versa. So in overdrive, if you just sit there and listen to it and go, yeah, okay, the fifth is about the only thing that really works.
Yeah.
But it works because of how rich it is.
Yeah.
So you don't need a lot of notes to make it rich. But when you're playing with clean, and I always wondered that when I used to jump on acoustic guitar, I'm like, why does acoustic sound so like nice and all that stuff? It's really pretty.
Yeah.
It has no distortion. It has no overdrive.
Yeah.
So each note rings out true on its own self. But as soon as you plug into an amp, even this has some crunch in it. Even if I hit harder, especially if I have a tube amp, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different little things there, even just kind of rolling the volume knob back. You talked about compression. Yeah, that's a big one to make your clean sound loud without it overdriving.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's 15 minutes about multiple string things. The double stops seem to be really popular. But even so, and that sounds decent in overdrive too. Even so, though, I have distinct melody line.
Yeah.
I still have extra notes in the background, but I'm not going. With overdrive, that's gonna it's gonna sound really shrill. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
So as a general rule, clean stuff. Oh yeah. Sounds great, but if overdrive, it's gonna sound terrible.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Like I want to prove you wrong, but like
please prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong.
No, but like at the same time, this is good because I'm trying. Like we have like the interludes that we do in between songs because we don't like talking. We like to fill in the space of music.
Nice.
But there's some where it's like compressed, clean guitar solos, but then there are like the ambient stuff with a little bit of overdrive. But it has been muddy, so this is like super good.
So the more drive you use, the less modulation you can rely on, and the less note information you should use. Because the way harmonic, again, fancy word, the way harmonics and overtones work, as soon as you hit overdrive, if you looked at it on like a wave frequency thing, a clean guitar is like kind of like that. Like there's gonna be hills and valleys, but it tapers off. You hit overdrive, and all of that stuff over there gets way more audible. So all those overtones become more present in what you're playing, so everything gets messier. And so extreme versions of overdrive, you crank it all the way, you play a chord, it's just
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why a rock version, and again I do this all the time with ukus. Yeah, it's that's a G chord now,
Yeah, yeah.
even though light skin and light brown eyes, right? I only do that with clean as I can get it to be. Otherwise, if I had too much overdrive on it, it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I hit the button, yeah, it's.
Yeah.
So I established the chord first, and then I'm still playing individual notes after that. And this is about as messy as I get. That's really messy, but that's by design.
I see what you mean.
That's super by design because it's at the end of the phrase, and it's on a line where Amy sings just. And so then in that background, now clean it sounds.
Yeah.
It sounds great. Overdrive it's a wash, and I know that, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things. And then the other thing you might want to start exploring is arpeggios, but thinking of them more as chord shapes. And then what you would want to do is just kind of explore different shapes. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the L shapes. Did we ever talk about? Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a page out of the Jimi Hendrix book. What's your favorite key? Signature.
G.
G, okay, me too. So in the key of G, you should memorize L here, L there. 1, 4, 5, and minor 6, 3, 2. So this is a yin and yang version. Major, minor. Right. So what's cool about this is if you're just freestyle jamming, somebody takes the solo, well, all you got to do is just jump around to any one of those locations, make sure it's the right type of chord, because if not, it's going to sound bad. But that's fun jamming. If you have somebody who can kind of read what you're doing as a soloist and provide you different kind of colors to play over, oh, that's really fun. But you can be like, cool, it's just these L's, whatever. Okay, so what you can do is think about it like this. Okay, and this goes hand in hand with the 5 shapes. Down here I have this chord, and what's available to me is that's pattern 2. So anytime I have this chord, a 4 chord, it's always within this pattern. It's kind of a big task, but it's also really small. The same shape can be used when you play the 1 chord. I didn't change anything. It's the same region. And all within there's all sorts of things. But the more that you can visualize the pattern that you're in, the easier everything becomes. Otherwise, it's a guessing game, which is fine. It's still going to be a guessing game, but the more that you are aware of where you are. Okay, so let's say now we come here. This is your 2 chord. Well, here's pattern 3. So the main thing is I'm providing that main downbeat. If I come up here, this is my 5 chord, same shape though. And it's all just within this scale pattern, that weird jacked up one. That's what's available to me right there. I'm playing the diatonic notes as well.
Yeah.
But it's still within that frame, right? But you see how important those diatonic notes are because
it's flavor.
Way more flavor. Now, depending on the context, diatonics is terrible, but most of the time it's going to give you access to things that you're not used to hearing. But my point is, here you have this scale box, regardless if you're playing that or that. If you move over, you're in a new scale box. Then when you finally get to here, okay, you have this scale box. But don't even really worry about these strings, because you're never going to play them as a soloist. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing chords, then I can go wherever I want. But if I'm doing both,
Yeah.
and now this keeps going. And then there's this guy. But it just keeps going, so you can keep riding. You know that one, right? So there's a chord that lives within the scale box. So to me, I rather than looking at little it depends on you though. I can show you the way that I rationalize and think about guitar, and you don't have to do it like me, but maybe you can take some ideas.
Oh yeah.
And just go, okay, that's how he's approaching it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do that crap all the time. I go, especially if I'm able to communicate on a level where it's easy to communicate, so I can be like, oh, I noticed you're in that pattern. They might call it pattern 2, I call it pattern 5, whatever. I go, yeah, that one. How did that note work, right? And we'll have a conversation about, oh, it's a flat 5, and I'm like, oh, a flat 5, right? And depending on where you are with communication, but I'm just trying to show you just the physical part of it. It's doing both is hard, chords and lead, and but if you can join it with that, all those little micro shapes exist within those scale patterns anyway. So if you only learn like little arpeggios by themselves, you won't connect that in the bigger picture of things.
Okay.
And that's the harder part of all of this. I'm hoping this is answering some questions.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So there's a chord that always lives there. And now, you don't have to play the chord like this, you can just play a fraction of it. Or, rather. Or. So again, in the key of G, all I'm doing is I'm applying this with diatonics, whatever, and I'm just playing a chord. I'm doing the L's as well as the, and so to me, overall understanding of the guitar is if you understand L's and you understand these 5 patterns, you're unstoppable. That's everything.
Yeah.
Everything on guitar is, lead guitar is that.
Yeah.
Rhythm guitar is these L-shaped things.
Yeah.
That's a great foundation because any layer that you add on top of that, you can always just think back at it as, oh, it's my 5 pentatonics. So when you do diatonics, it's still your 5 core pentatonics. You're just adding more shit in it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so if you ever make mistakes, you can go back to how you are used to playing, like your most instinctual way of playing, which is whoa. You know, but you have to step outside. At least what I call hokey pokey. You have to go, okay, diatonic. Whoa, okay, oh, back to what I know.
Okay. Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna do that at practice today.
In rehearsals, like, just go for it. But live, go like this and see, okay, actually I'm pulling it off. And as soon as you start doing some sour notes, just go right back to what you know.
Okay.
Because that's the other thing too, it's what I call the emotional baggage of live performance, is that in a controlled setting you're braver. And you're no different than when you play in a controlled setting than live. You're really not.
Yeah.
It's your own personal bullshit that gets in the way. Like, that's what gets in the way. So you have to kind of practice the emotional bullshit part of it, which is just, you got to play live and make the mistakes, but then also make sure that you can get back to safety. And the more that you branch out, the more you're going to do riskier things, but then the payoff is, wow, that was incredible. Right? Either your fellow musicians are going to go, that was really good, or somebody in the audience is going to go, that was amazing. Right? And it's the end goal is to be able to take any of these tricks and make people inspired by it. So if I just wear my pentatonic hat, how do I make that a killer solo? And then half of it is the other band members, actually. That's what really makes my solo even better, is if they get out of my way to let me do my thing. So a great thing is if they let me do my thing. Right? They let me do my thing, and then as I'm playing, they start creeping up.
Yeah.
This is a subtle. This is like, you ever watch a theater,
Mhm.
a theater play, and then
Yeah.
they change the setting behind the singer. That's and then the whole setting behind them's changing, and then before you know it, he's on top of a mountain singing.
Yeah.
That's this. And then by the time that kicks in, I'm still soloing, and people are like,
Yeah.
So half of it is what I'm doing, but half of it is not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's a team effort, and there's so many layers. I mean, the amount of layers and subtext between things, and some musicians just naturally do it. They don't even know they're doing it, but some don't. And so, you know, becoming aware of it and then also learning about that. But yeah, you know, subtly creeping in X, Y, Z. But yeah, 3:28.
Yeah, we're out of time. Venmo okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I've cashed you if you need cash.
Whatever. Whatever you're comfortable with.
Actually, do you mind if I do cash? Do you have change for a 20?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, if you have a band that can keep steady time and get out of your way,
Right.
anything you play is gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
It's like it makes or breaks it. Half your grade is not you.
Yeah.
It's like a group project. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry I was late today. I mean,
That's okay,
it's
man.
my loss. Yeah. I'm happy that is. Yeah. I'm really interested in seeing how those the sevenths,
The sixth and
fifths,
sevenths.
the sixths and the sevenths.
Oh, you
I
want to
really
see
wanna-
how like the fifths and fourths work on overdrive or whatever?
One of these
Experiment with
days,
it.
one of these days, I want to show you like the interludes we're working on. That's why, because I definitely want to make them into songs.
Oh, cool.
But like, it's that washiness with the overdrives that like
Yeah.
I have it in my head. Where, like, I really do want to do these.
Well, soloing with
Intervals.
overdrive is the best. Like it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best,
yeah.
but it just if you have too much note information, it just doesn't work. It sucks.
Yeah. I thought so. Okay, shoot.
See you, Dom.
Right on.
Yeah.
Enjoy the pedal board.
Hey, I'm gonna be working on that once I'm done with all my crap.
Nice. Oh yeah, send me a picture when you set it up.
Okay.